Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Primrose pzjbimhaconsulting and I post content about research, running and mindfulness. Today's episode is about research as I will be taking you through my reflections on my top 10 speaking appearances. So you might be wondering, why is it important to speak when you're a researcher or if you are an academic? So I've already said this in numerous videos that the work that researchers do and publish often goes unnoticed because we have different types of people, stakeholders that is, and we need to reach out to them in different ways. So for example, if I write a journal article or a book chapter or a book that is based on my dissertation, all of that might get the attention of scholars, students, academics who will be looking for insights to further their own research based on similar topics, similar theories, or similar case studies. However, research needs to be communicated to wider audiences. For example, I do communicate about research through my YouTube channel, which reaches out to more than just scholars or lecturers. So, when it comes to academia itself, there are also different ways of communicating one's research or one's intellectual thoughts, as well as one's ongoing findings, particularly if you're still doing your master's research or your PhD research. This can also apply to your honors. So there are seminars or webinars, that's just a seminar happening online. There are workshops, there are conferences. Those are the main forms of engagements. And these allow one to make a presentation, for people to ask them questions and for you to respond obviously. And also it allows you to engage with other people's presentations and research, as well as to form collaborations. Presentations also help because sometimes they're based on ongoing work to create a volume of publications, and you will be invited to submit. Your work will be peer reviewed, edited, and get published eventually. Sometimes also presenting relates to work that has already been published. So in my case, I think that has been the bulk of my presentations, where you speak about your main findings, where you even analyze or critique your own work and give updates on how situations are at present compared to when you did the writing. Again, those are key points because they help people to engage with your work. People also ask questions, and people oftentimes are just there to commend the good work you would have done. So I will jump straight into it. How I've decided to relay the information to you is I'll speak about where I spoke, when in terms of the year, how I got the speaking gig, whether it was paid or unpaid, and whether anyone funded it. To be quite honest, I don't even think that out of the 10, only one was paid. But anyway, I'll speak about it. So the first time I was a panelist in 2017, after finishing my master's dissertation, about to go back home because I was unemployed. One of my classmates, also a close friend at the time, was already working, and she was in an organization where they discussed a wide range of topics relating to Africa's development. And so she decided to invite me to become one of the panelists. We were speaking about the African Union at 15, an agenda for the new chairperson of the African Union Commission. And at this event, I was probably the youngest speaker, but that's the first time I actually realized that I have the potential to be eloquent, or rather I'm eloquent. I don't know. Where do I sit? You can help me with that one. So I presented. People loved my submissions, and I don't remember receiving any harsh criticism or questions. And I really loved being in that space because I also got to engage with speakers that were from government, speakers from the African Union itself, and also speakers who are in think tank environments as policy analysts. The moment I left this event, someone had already dropped me an email because they had wanted me to teach their students who were in Cape Town on a Stanford University program. The downfall was I had to go home. And because I was not moneyed, I decided to just go home. And that was one big lost opportunity. My mom and I always think about it every now and again. It doesn't help to sulk, but like it shows you how even your first speaking engagement can lead to new invitations immediately. This happened in Cape Town, in the comfort of the city I was living in at the time. no one paid me to speak, and I footed my own transport costs, which was fine. So 2018, I was now working in government. 2019 also, I was still working in a government space. And in respect of that, I could not speak in my individual capacity to the media or at any particular forum. So also because at the time, I didn't even know that I was going to pursue a career in academia. So hence the break between 2018 and 2019. Come 2020, I was invited in November. We were mid-COVID, obviously, so I presented virtually by Chatham House Africa program. They invited me to speak at an event on economic governance and regional integration in Zimbabwe. And I took time to find out how Chatham House got to know about me. So first of all, my wild guess was they had read my paper on the management of borders during peak periods, right? I wrote this paper in 2018 and it related to what they wanted me to speak about. They wanted me to speak about the implications of the border management systems at the time, obviously between South Africa and Zimbabwe, which is the Beitbridge border post that I had written about, and how that affects regional integration. So I was well versed in what I was speaking about. Of course, I updated my notes in terms of what was happening at the time, particularly given that it was now during COVID-19. So what does movement of goods and persons look like during that particular period, and how does it factor into already pressing challenges? So well received once again. Some of the panelists were ministers, some of them were people in high places in different international organizations. I was so pleased to be there, and really it showed me that what you write does not go unnoticed, particularly if it's relevant to certain stakeholders. When they do have forums, they will ask you to speak to it. So when you write, hey, write intentionally, and you never know, the organizations you're targeting might one day approach you. So I then spoke the next time, March 2022. What happened in 2021? I actually don't know, hey? So in 2021, that's when I started my first postdoctoral research fellowship. I spoke at a lot of events that were organized by the department that I was attached to as a research fellow. So it's not that I wasn't doing any speaking engagements, but I count them as work. So I didn't put any one of those engagements as part of my top 10 public appearances, just for the record. So we shift now to March 2022. It's Women's Month, International Women's Month, and I was suffering from COVID, but I've been asked, I was suffering from COVID, but I'd been asked to speak, during a panel on women in foreign policy research and beyond. This was obviously because I had written an article for International Relations with regards to the role of African women in politics and international relations. And that was just obvious that because of the wide reach that the international relations has, I was likely to be invited to such panels. But also, I don't want to discount the grace of God. I think 100%, let's just say, the grace of God. Someone spotted that paper. They felt like I could speak at this event. Because obviously, knowing how to write doesn't mean you know how to speak. So I was hosted. This was by the British International Studies Association, BISA, Working Group on Foreign Policy. It was amazing once again. Mostly just, I think it was workshop style more than a seminar. We're just exchanging ideas from different geographical locations, appreciating each other's points, and giving each other insights on new areas of research. And then, same month, March 2022, I was invited by Chatham House once again. Remember, Chatham House hosted me in 2020, mid-COVID, and I was speaking about border management. And this time, once again, it's Chatham House, but I'm invited to speak in person on a conference entitled Emerging Powers in Africa, Regional and National Economic Linkages in East and Southern Africa. And this was in Lusaka, Zambia. The trip was fully sponsored by them in terms of transport and food, as well as accommodation, which I think, any basic speaker needs. Again, this was because they'd formally invited me. I think they liked my work and they felt that I would make worthy contributions to this particular event. So obviously I had to expand in terms of my focus. My paper was on the management of the movement of persons and goods at the Beitbridge border between South Africa and Zimbabwe. But now I was looking at East and Southern Africa. So I looked at case studies from different countries in East as well as in Southern Africa. I focused a lot on those that have one-stop border systems to see how they've helped to alleviate most of the problems that are linked to the movement of goods as well as persons. So it was really nice because I also got to re-immerse myself into research I'd previously done in 2018, and I even had to find data. I engaged with multiple stakeholders, such as people who were working for customs, people working at diplomatic missions, to get a feel of what's happening in the countries where they're hosted. So major networking opportunity. There were speakers who I consider to be big people, noteworthy scholars that I could only think about reading from and never meeting, and also met people from government, from business, legal practitioners, and it just helped me also to just take time away. I was now recovering from my COVID-19 episode, and it was my very first conference as officially Dr. pzjbimha. So yes, thanks once again, Chatham House. I'm looking forward to a future invitation because in 2023, nothing happened between us. Anyway, after March 2022, number 5 was a Southern African Development Community Mission in Mozambique conference, SAMIM conference. I organized and co-facilitated this one. So it was actually at the end of my UCT postdoctoral research fellowship, and I was not particularly presenting a paper, but hey, as Miss Organizer, I was facilitating a lot of the discussions there, and I really enjoyed being a chair for discussions because it's not a position that I've been awarded before within an academic space. And I like that I got that opportunity because we hosted again, I think the head of the Summit mission at the time. We also hosted various stakeholders from academia, from military ranks, people also from think tanks, amongst others. So I nailed it with that one. It was based in Cape Town, very close to my place. I didn't pay anything. I didn't get paid for it also. And then after October 2022, my next best presentation was in May 2023. Here I spoke at a panel, on decolonizing African studies, hosted by Leiden University, and I had to do this online because there was no option to go there in person, and also I was never going to find myself to go up there, because I just don't have the means. So this one is very interesting. Someone drops me an email, says, "Hi Primrose, I'm a former student of yours. I was doing a semester study abroad at the University of Cape Town and you were one of my lecturers." And I was like, "Okay." And she's like, "Yeah, so we're having this conversation on decolonizing African studies. You're based at UCT and you've been there through various processes with relation to student activism and, action towards transformative reforms at the university in relation to decolonization. I've never written on this topic. I spoke to it briefly in classes on gender and the politics of development, but I didn't go in depth. So I really don't know why the student thought I could do it. But then again, I went onto the panel, nailed it. It was also very nourishing. Major bummer was that I think I was one of the 2 speakers that were online and the rest of the panel was in person, which is a very weird setting to be in, but I really like that I immersed myself in those conversations because it was more of an exchange more than anything else. The questions were chilled, I could answer everything that was presented to me at least, and the presentation was to a whole lecture of students. So it was very different also in terms of the audience. It's not you speaking to like big stakeholders, people that are already pushing whatever agenda. You're speaking to students that are probably hearing about decolonization from a global north context, and they're so used to global north lecturers and academics teaching them about it. And so I hope that I brought a difference to that particular presentation. My next was May 2023. Again, I was a panelist. This was at the launch of the book, which was published by the Institute for Security Studies. It's a book on the African Union at 20, and the event was hosted at the University of Joburg, obviously in Johannesburg. Till date, that's like the best presentation I think I've ever given. So funny enough, I had 1 week to prepare. Background to the story, my former supervisor and I actually wrote a chapter that is in this book, and our chapter is on the role of the African Union in promoting economic development on the continent, right? I think 2 speakers dropped out. For some reason, I think that the organizers wanted to have profile high profile people, professors presenting on book chapters and analyzing the book and whatever. My supervisor was in Ghana, he could not make it. And instead of him saying, "Oh no, I can't make it, full stop," he was like, "I can't make it. But I mean, I co-authored with someone. Can she come to present?" Right? The organizer contacts me. He's like, "We need you to present, but when you do present, we need you to actually review 2 chapters. The chapter you wrote and one of the other chapters." To be quite honest, obviously I contributed a chapter to this book, but till date I've never read the other chapters besides our chapter and the chapter that I also had to review for this particular event. So that was a lot of homework, but I was on it. I love challenges that involve speaking. Like, if it involves speaking and critique and analysis, I am your girl. I am there. So I prepare. I got notes from the other speaker who was not going to be able to make it because, of course, there's certain views or perspectives they had wanted me to merge into my presentation. I was fully sponsored by the Institute of Security Studies. I also got an honorarium for participating. So that is the only paid gig I've done thus far. They need to invite me for more, hey? And next time I wanted to be in Addis Ababa and not in Johannesburg because I'm so used to speaking in South Africa and in Southern Africa. So I presented on the panel. We had, a journalist. We had people that worked with think tanks. We also had people from government, legal practitioners. People were very impressed by my delivery. I just enjoyed it. It was a bummer that my camera failed me on the day. Load shedding failed me on the day. So even though I wanted to have a vlog about that event, there was never one. Anyway, moving on. My 8th is July 2023. I spoke once again in Johannesburg at the Pan-African Women's Summit. I was invited by the president, by the organizer, Miss Hakula. I'm forever thankful to her. She said she'd been eyeing me since like COVID, and she had wanted me to, talk to her and wanted me to present at this particular event. She actually came to Cape Town in April of this year. At the same event that we were at, we did not manage to meet because schedules just didn't align. In fact, it was just me. I was super busy. I had to be in Stellenbosch at one point and we couldn't meet then. But still, she didn't take that as me turning her down. I was invited in August. They paid for my accommodation. I footed the bill for my travel expenses. They also paid for my food, of course. The event was amazing. I've never been in a space where there is so much feminine energy, positive feminine energy, women of excellence, like queens of excellence. And it was not academic at all. I was asked to just speak about the importance of mentorship, right, in grooming future leaders, particularly women. Initially, I spent the night, burned the midnight candle, typing down a speech and whatnot. But then something told me to speak from my heart. I do have a vlog relating to this event, so I'll put down the link below for you to get insights on what I said. Oh my goodness. I went there, to be quite honest, mostly for nourishing. Thank you, God. I saw so many women who have broken barriers in many sectors, women that we will thank for centuries, women that will pass on the baton to us, and we need to do better in business, in information technology, in politics, you name it. You know what? I don't know. I don't even want to compare. All these are my bests. And then, you might be wondering where she saw me. I think she saw me on LinkedIn or on YouTube, whichever way. So sometimes your online presence actually matters. If you seem like you're influencing people in a particular direction, yes, your influencer work will, do wonders for you. And then, number 9, September 2023. My people. So, I've never traveled outside the African continent. Actually, I've never traveled, past tense. I had never traveled outside the Southern African context. outside the African continent. And I do not afford to take myself abroad at all, still, till date. So, there's an email that came to my UCT email. And it said something about women in legal histories. And I was just like, it's from Germany. I don't know anyone in Germany. And I was just like, I don't know what that is. So on one day when I was bored and I was, deleting stuff, cleaning up my mailbox, I was like, let me check that email again. They wanted me to speak on a topic of my choice that relates to women and legal history, particularly from a decolonial perspective. And there was an option to speak virtually or in person. Germany, Frankfurt, Max Planck Institute. By the way, Max Planck is one of the institutes I revere a lot. Like, they do a lot of research. I don't know how they rank internationally, but they are good in terms of their research outputs. So when I saw in-person option, I was like, okay, calm down. It's already over a month. Quickly replied, hi there, obviously in a formal manner, dear blah, blah, blah. It was with, I'm so sorry. I missed your email. I'm seeing it now. Can I still send you my abstract? Actually, I've attached my abstract because I wrote one. You need to seem serious about these things. And I'm keen to speak in person. Will the event sponsor me? The organizers? They responded. They were like, oh, yes. Thank you for your abstract. It's perfect. We will host you. We will pay for your transport, for your accommodation, as well as your food. Huh? What? Wow. I called my mom. I was excited. And wow. One thing that happened, guys, I vlogged the entire time that I was in Germany. And my memory card decided to do a number on me before I could upload anything online. I'm still trying to rectify that. But in case it doesn't happen, it's alright. I do have a few memories based on the pictures I was sending to my mom and my sister whilst I was there. But it's such a bummer that I could not post about that particular event. Some of you might have been waiting for it. Just know it might never happen. Anyway, I wrote a whole paper from scratch. I have never studied a law course in my life, and I needed to find a topic that relates to women and law on the African continent. One topic that would allow me to actually provide a decolonial analysis of how legal reforms have helped us to rectify the cons of the systems that were imposed by the white imperialists, the British in this case, in relation to Zimbabwe. So I ended up looking at the implications of colonial law in relation to marriages, which refers to gender, because obviously women were defined as minors. For a long time, they could not own property. They were at the mercy of their fathers or their husbands if they were married, amongst other factors. And I was just speaking about how some of the reforms today obviously are following global trends because people's cultures are just changing. People are cohabiting. People don't want to get married. People are making multiple families in terms of like where they're having kids. Divorce rates are higher now, amongst other factors, but I'm not going to go into that. But the background is this was one of the biggest invitations. I think it was by God's grace, because I tried to find out where they found out about me. They just say they heard that I do a lot of gender work. So clearly, my work as a gender studies lecturer does a lot. Because, trust you me, my first gender studies paper was in 2016. And my second gender studies paper was actually in June of 2023, this year. Also, that paper was a book review of a book that looks at gender, religion, and marriage law in the West African context. So I took insights from how to do analysis of gender and law from that particular book, but obviously I contextualize it to Zimbabwe because I was going to speak about Zimbabwe specifically when I went to Germany. Number 10, we've come to the last one for today. Blessings upon blessings. You know what? So I was invited to be an academic stakeholder at the review of South Africa's national policy framework for women's empowerment and gender equality. I was invited as an academic. I asked the person who sent us invitations and stuff. She's like, "Oh no, I was at UCT and some people recommended you, so that's how I ended up there." So, so once again, me teaching gender studies has done a lot for me in terms of getting me out there. And then I loved being there because there were so many people representing multiple sectors, civil society, religious leaders, people from think tanks, people from government departments, as well as obviously I was hosted there. The organization was the Human Sciences Research Council. I've always wanted to work for them, but I don't know what happens to my applications. I hope they're seeing this and that they will hire me. I am so happy that I got to be part of this because oftentimes, as an academic, you are stuck with people that do research in a particular way and speak about issues in a particular way. But getting to actually engage with people who use their own languages and their own local terms and give you real case studies about what's happening on an everyday basis and what's happening in terms of the research they've undertaken. What are people saying on the ground about challenges relating to drug abuse, gender-based violence, poverty and unemployment, the way that education is not suitable for the needs of communities as well as the economy. Sure, I mean, I was invited to contribute, but I thought that I left with so much more. So my major takeaway point is being invited to speak or to be in spaces where people are speaking actually nourishes you more than you nourishing other people. I guess we can sum it up to being information exchange, hoping that people also appreciate what I have to bring to the table. But I highly appreciate everything that I've gained from attending those particular events. Now, before I clock out, number 11, which I don't even know if it's going to be good or not. Why is it on top 10? I mean, 10 has ended. Why is it on my top 10 presentations? Anyway, in a few days' time, I'm going to be presenting. I had to pay. This is my very first time paying to speak. So there was a call for papers, abstracts rather. I said on LinkedIn, University of Namibia, School of Military Science, their first international conference on security, resource control, and democracy. In my head, I was like, I could go to Namibia to present, but I don't have the funds. And even if I had a budget, I realized that the things that I want to do in Namibia are so far from Windhoek, where the university is hosting the conference. So really, with the time that I would have to go there, things would not work out. So I'm going to be a virtual participant. I paid about 560 rands. Yo, I don't know what it's for. Admin? Anyway, so I had to submit an abstract. What I did was I dug out an abstract from a paper that was rejected, a whole paper that I submitted in January of this year. And obviously, I edited it out. I'm going to be doing a presentation specifically on the people that are on the Zimbabwe exemption permits. But broadly, I will be looking at South Africa's management of the Zimbabwe special permit processes between 2009 and present. I will see if I can share insights from the presentation, but because it's virtual, it's going to be difficult trying to record myself whilst I'm on Zoom. So anyway, I believe that this presentation is going to open me up to a whole new audience, mainly of course from Namibia, but also is being hosted by a School of Military Science. I just want to step out from just doing gender work and international relations work in international relations and gender studies department. So hopefully, speaking to an audience for military science, they'll give me fresh perspectives. It's going to be interesting to hear what they think about migration management policies, amongst other things. So to round up, I just want to end it with what I think are 5 key tips, right? On how to be invited to speak or how to speak at events that are relevant to your research interests. Number 1 is share your work via relevant platforms. So for example, you've written a paper, a dissertation, a thesis, you name it. Share about it on LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn helps you to get a reach in terms of organizations that are within your area. So with me, for example, I've always followed the organizations that ended up asking me to speak, right? Your Chatham House, your Institute for Security Studies, your Institute for Justice and Reconciliation, among others. I also follow Max Planck. So really put your work out there, but make sure that the people that need to see this work are people you follow or people that you've connected with on LinkedIn. I never did this intentionally. I just realized it in hindsight. So all the 5 tips I'm giving you, I was not intentional. I did not expect it to lead to these particular outcomes. Obviously now I'm now like, when I write this, I hope it gives me that. And I feel like being too strategic about it can end up leading to disappointments, but don't let it disappoint you. Just be realistic about things, you know. Also share your work through TV and radio interviews. I don't know if it's possible to reach out to a TV or radio and say, I've got this to share. I've always been approached. I always say no to TV interviews. I don't know why. I think I'm not ready. And I have always said yes to radio interviews. Also, you could have your own blog or website where you can share your information. I'm not sure how much sharing on Facebook would help, but I think if you're in relevant groups on Facebook, on WhatsApp, and on Instagram, it will be helpful. Also, if you're a YouTuber, post about the work that you do. If you know you want your work to be recognized by more than just people in particular professional circles. I'm not too sure how to share on TikTok, but I guess you can just do like a quick video and speak about it. But I don't think many people are on TikTok for the content that I write on. And then connect with people from multiple sectors. Connecting starts from the grassroots. In school, at work. My first presentation, like I said, was because a classmate who thinks I want to be, or rather knew that I wanted to be the UN Secretary General was like, Primrose, you love speaking and you're hypercritical of the African Union. And she approached me, right? Students that I've taught, right? This was me at work, not knowing that this would give me like a platform to speak elsewhere. So I guess I'm a good lecturer to some students, that they can even think about me, that they can even remember me. I've taught hundreds of students. I'm sure like the total is up to like 2,000 by now. And I wouldn't expect anyone to remember me for whatever reason, just because varsity is overwhelming. But I've had opportunities through those who remembered me. And then colleagues also may just be the next step to your next presentation because they know what you're good at. Same goes for bosses. In this case, my master's / PhD supervisor also, because we worked together, we wrote together, and I've volunteered to lecture for them, so they knew that I actually had the ability to be at a particular event and speak. And then connect with people through different events, right? Tell people about the work you do. If you've got a business card, give it to them. Actually, you need to have a business card. Half the time, actually, though, just know that people don't take it seriously. They take your business card, you reach out to them, they never reach out to you. Sad. Speak in communities, at church. Also, if you've got relatives that are in fields of interest, you know what? Make sure you use those connections. And then people need to know who you are, what you have done, what you are doing, what your vision is, right? I can imagine me being invited to be at the Pan-African Women's Summit is probably because of a certain way that I present myself on LinkedIn as well as through my YouTube channel, and they thought that I was the best fit. So whatever you communicate about yourself, be intentional and make sure that this is information that will reach out to your next destiny helper. Be polite always and be respectful to everyone. Don't look down upon people you tutor, people you lecture. Don't look down upon people who lead you because they don't know how to do certain things and whatnot. You just never know where your next blessing is coming from. Number 2, so I say number 1, share your work via relevant platforms. And then number 2, follow influencers and make connections in multiple sectors. For me, these sectors are politics, diplomacy, trade and economics, gender, global development, and I follow organizations linked to the United Nations, the African Union, you name them. Be intentional. If it means even following all the top universities, from your Harvard, your Oxford, your University of London, whatever the case may be. Follow them, see what they're doing, because they might have events coming up. Especially now, there's a lot of events that are still hybrid, so you can even present online. Of course, my top 10 presentations do not resemble anything linked to me reaching out, besides the next one that's coming, the Namibia one. But I think it's something that I highly encourage. I don't know why I've never done it. I don't know. I just don't know. Just don't know. And then number 3, attend events and see how things are done. So this year, for example, I've had the privilege of attending the African Continental Free Trade Area Business Forum. Recently attended also the Cape Town Conversation Conference hosted by the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. These people advertised online that they have events. I applied, I was accepted to participate. I live in Cape Town where they were being hosted, so there was not much I needed to take out of my pocket, just transport mainly. And honestly, I got to network. I also got to listen in on various conversations, presentation from business managers, from politicians, from policy making enthusiasts, amongst others. It is so helpful. It also shows you how to speak when you attend future events, right? So the first time I was asked to speak at a panel, right, where I had to sit and there's like a sort of like a semicircle format. I've never done that, but I've seen it happen on a stage. So I was comfortable in my skin because I just pictured myself doing what I've seen other people doing. When you've never been behind a pulpit, right? But you've seen it, it's quite familiar. And you can also actually gain inspiration from what you saw and just go with the flow. And then the fourth one is volunteer your services if there's an opportunity to learn, speak, network, and make your mark. Of all the things I mentioned, the only one where I volunteered was the SAMIM conference. So the SADC mission in Mozambique, I think is still like a hot topic, for lack of a better word, on the African Union agenda in terms of peace and security globally. And I knew that me organizing was going to take a lot out of my time and my effort. I was not getting paid, but I knew the value that would come out of engaging with the stakeholders that were coming to the event. I knew the value that will actually come out of me being a chair for some of the sessions, right? So honestly, no regrets. One major piece of advice is, please, when you volunteer, make sure you're going to get something that nourishes you individually, because people might end up just using you, taking advantage of you, and then you are wasted at the end of it, and you also feel no sense of fulfillment at all. Number 5, develop your own platforms. Really. So I think the major reason why I haven't had to reach out to people is because they saw me through my work on LinkedIn, saw me through my work on my website, saw me through my work on Twitter, and I don't know if I've mentioned YouTube as well, but that has actually helped. So it depends on how you feel about putting yourself out there and which platforms you're comfortable with, but I honestly think they're helpful. It could be a newsletter, it could be podcasting, it could be a website. Whatever you think will work for you, make sure you use it. So I've come to the end of this specific video. I hope that you found it insightful and helpful. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop me an email. I have put down my email in the description box. I do not charge people to give any advice or to exchange any ideas, so do not shy away. If you're more of a person who doesn't mind having their comment on YouTube, please feel free to do that. I actually value that as well because it helps to direct people towards my video. These algorithms work in a funny way. So thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.